afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting Propagandacaster. I'm your host, Imperial Dane, Master Propaganda Hero Strike, Defender of the Fatherland. Off here to an exciting 1 vs 1 on Langraskaya. Between the north, you got Luciano fighting for America, freedom, democracy. The 19th Infantry Division rush in to hold the line, as other units have been forced to fall back under the withering assault of Karl, fighting for the Oberkommando, Germany, das Vaterland. The 2nd SS Panzer Division das Reich, having already made short work of several other infantry divisions, he pushes onwards to throw the Allies back into the sea. With fortification, special operations and scavenge doctrine here, with Dublin for Obersoldaten versus heavy cavalry, Recon Support and mechanized company with triple infantry. Will Luciano prevail, or will Karl add another division to his kill tally? Watch and find out. We got a double drive start here for Luciano, with barbed wire being laid by his reasons as they go heroically for the releasing point here, but Karl's Volksgrenadier march out in lockstep, advancing on allied positions, threatening Luciano's early start here, and more importantly preventing him from just going straight for the fuel here. Meanwhile, on the west, Sturm Pine's being hit there. Interesting enough, not storming Luciano. Instead, that is left to the Volksgrenadiers. Karl clearly has more faith in them than most other players do. He's a man who believes in the power of the German state to transform untrained troops into slightly less untrained troops. Just making use of the house, he's just giving away. He's not really getting the victory point, but he's also giving his opponent off it, so I suppose that kind of works out now. You can see he's just sort of sneaking about there. Technically a bit off just leaving a Rifle Squad there, but at the same time, Rifle Squad could then grab here, force him to maybe react, and then, you know, open up for some other options. He might want to consider more to just make it harder for Karl to use that building. Focus coming in here, Rifle taking up position here, slowly pressuring Karl, but Karl doesn't care. Luciano, though, is not to be put to. Might try and hit his opponent's fuel point, try to return the favour there to Karl, and show him that he can do what Karl does better, he hopes. The third Rifle Squad there done for Luciano. Karl, though, already has the third full squad out. There we go. In the Sturm Panies was Rifleman, Sturmgewehrs versus M1 Garands, fully automatic. Though technically you aren't supposed to fight fully automatically, and versus the semi-automatic M1 Garand. In fact, the Sturmgewehr 44 did not handle fully automatic fire too well due to the recoil. So they were generally sort of fine in single fire mode and maybe bursts, but definitely not full auto. Folks are moving up here. We got mortar on the way there for Luciano, flanking in here, going up close to the Volksgrenadiers. Without grenades, it's going to be a bit of trouble in this case. We've got the Volks supporting here, pretty much catch the rifle in a vicious crossfire, which Luciano on his own is not going to win. This is a pretty poor engagement. It's just mostly manpower here in a fake, otherwise favorable engagement for Karl. So good work there by Karl. Meanwhile, the Luciano starts hitting elsewhere, trying to that way just slow down and stall Karl. Of course, he still needs to send a victory point for the harassment to work. That does force Karl to sort of get out of his houses and sort of push against Luciano, losing the eastern fuel point here. Mortar ramming here for Luciano to help sort of bleed him out there. And rather than being pushed back, he's pushing for the fuel point in the west now. Trot on the way for Karl. We got Sandbags here by the eastern fuel point there. Karl just keeps up the pressure here, unrelentingly, just hammering away at Luciano, though of course was trying to hammer back here with mortar 5. We got no sign of take up yet there for Luciano. He could go here for the platoon command post for a lieutenant. There you go, moving out into the open versus the re-echelons. Could in theory try and rush the mortar here, forcing that back, though they are a bit low on health. Then again, there's only one re-echelon with one M1 carbine left. He does accept to hit the point here. The note, Karl does not immediately go straight for him. He just tries to get behind his sort of hit retreat path, making it harder for Luciano to get a safe retreat there the longer he lingers. But Eastern fuel point almost secured for Karl for the 2nd SS. We got Sturm Pioneers moving in to further assist the Volksgrenadiers there. Karl, on the other hand, is already going here for the battle group headquarters versus Luciano. Mortar fire the landing and house need to reinforce. Rifleman being continued to push down the west side. He could, you know, just briefly put more effort into the east to quickly gain the fuel there, but he is intent, of course, on just trying to tie down some of Karl's forces here in the west as well, ensuring, you know, he doesn't just push anything here. Also keeps the Karl points secure and also denies Karl resources if possible. So I mean that can work out there, but right now in the east, Karl was able to make aggressive use of the house here in a manner you actually rarely see on Langraskaya. Of course, most players tend to focus here or there, but there tends to be actually very less focuses. And in this regard, Karl is actually hitting a blind spot in a lot of players' sort of play style on Langraskaya, and that can be sufficiently devious if executed well, and this is clearly what Karl is doing. I mean, most players will never really just focus, that is, southern players will never focus on house to the same degree here that Karl is. But there you go, gain the fuel point there, arriving in the centre victory point. Moving up the west side, we got this jump house being caught. They'll be able to get into heavy car first. We got a lieutenant out here, so he opts for the more aggressive response, which in this case I think is the sort of sensible. I mean, could go for the captain, Stuart, but with the drop off in looks as overall, it's going to be less impactful than just going for something that hurt the infantry better, like the lieutenant, 50 calibers, M20s, or anti-aircraft half tracks. And of course, Karl himself will likely be going for the flak half track as well. He's quickly sort of moving about, they're checking the houses. He wants to make sure Karl doesn't launch any surprises. We got assault rifles in one full screen of the squad here versus Luciano's rifle. We got the M20 on the way there as well now. So he's going to sort of opt for the fast response here versus Karl. Not trying, you know, buy some time, go for the anti-aircraft half track, but instead opt for the M20. An interesting choice here for Luciano. Could actually rush the cover there, though of course there'll be a bit of issue with the incendiary grenade, but still the lieutenant would have more firepower close, though. Even in range, thanks to the BAR, he does have more firepower. Flak half track arriving for Karl slowly. Second as Eslo keeps up the pressure. Karl is unrelenting. Like a Teutonic storm, he launches himself, or well, specifically his men, at Luciano time and time again. So there you go, hitting the cutoff point. They'll have the advantage thanks to assault rifles and the incendiary grenades, and Luciano's men are not sufficiently equipped. No 50 calibers either. Of course, the M20 can do a bit. He's going to need to rush the lieutenant over to defend the cutoff point against Karl's rapid aggression. Infantry forming up the centre here, so Karl just bringing up more firepower as well that way. Making it harder here for Luciano to use an infantry freely. And there you go. M20 moving in there straight amongst the full screen. He's going to get Panther fasted, but he will get maximum damage there with the 50 caliber. Forcing them off the point. He could also use the smoke pots there to cover up the rearsense, then try to capture the cutoff point. In this case, going to flank behind the lieutenant. Flak half track almost done for Karl. Touch reinforcing. And he might want to consider some weapon racks soon, because otherwise he's going to have a hard time hitting with a flak half track without some bazookas. So continued pressure here. We can see that Luciano's beginning to scratch back more and more territory here, though, from Karl, fixing up the M20 using vehicle crew and the rear echelons. And Academy FAir for Karl to sort of help deal with the M20, possibly any anti-aircraft half track. And Luciano goes for docking this Recon Support, very much popular, and of course, in particular, very much popular with a platoon command post. Also opens up here for the anti-tank, and there's a call in there, alongside a paratrooper squads. In that regard, you know, for the cost, they're actually getting an awful lot, so it makes sense, though he's still one command point off from actually going there. Karl, meanwhile, though, is not opting for it. Also, very importantly, Luciano's not just focusing on the threat, he's also pushing on the west, trying to draw away forces from the cutoff point, at least make gains elsewhere. So good play there by Luciano. Even on pressure, he's thinking at least clearly enough to not just, you know, overfocus everything here on Karl's sort of main push. Then now there's Karl as he's setting up troops to assault up the right flank here versus Luciano's now brought out a 50 caliber machine gun. Good move. Sturm Pioneer being pushed back by Rifleman, hitting the fuel point in the east. Good prioritization there by Karl. 50 caliber, they can deal with arm piercing rounds, and we got a smoke screen on it as well. I'm guessing he was hoping he might push it forwards instead of pull it backwards. I'm not entirely sure what the plan specifically there was with the armor piercing rounds. Probably should have saved them until it actually was in the line of fire, but that's too late now. Right, they're caught by the flak half track, immediately pulled away. West assault also stopped here by a single full screen of the squad. Luciano is not having a particularly easy time out here thanks to Karl, and again his slightly unorthodox maneuvers. Again, just hitting this house and just pressuring the opponent is so incredibly rare for most players if they're in the southern position of the map here, that, you know, it's kind of forgivable. Of course, again, I mean, at the same time, you really wouldn't anticipate more players would actually do this, but again, it can be interesting to know how some players will just, you know, play a lot of maps and sort of very specific patterns, and those who are trying to explore them, many other sort of ways of playing them. And then, of course, when suddenly someone does that, you can sort of really catch them off guard, and that's, I think, pretty much largely what Karl is doing. Ambulance here for Luciano. Pushing on the west side, bit of planting in the centre there. MD-34 pushing back the lieutenant. 50 coming up in the ball supporting position. There you go, quickly gets hit with the incendiary grenade. Though does get us some good hits on the flak half deck. Oh, snap, the reaction's in the wrong spot, in the wrong place, at the wrong time. Oh dear, that's a full wipe there. Obviously only re-echelons, but that's going to hurt Luciano a bit. They got the MD-34 here at the centre victory point. Wiped But the question is Luciano aware of this? Oh, she could steal the MG34, and that would actually be quite helpful there versus Karl could help suppress some of his infantry. But there you go, Brandhandgranate off. I don't think Luciano's aware. And Trent to this, good to go. We got the 5th cover versus the Volkskongress, so taking a quick few losses. The gunner took a direct few hits there. Second gunner also got blasted. And there you go, 50 cover fire there being unleashed. I don't think it's worth it. Obviously, will rush the MG34 just to deny it to Karl and secure it for himself. Karl, on the other hand, doesn't particularly seem to care. He's unfazed. He only sees one thing: forwards. Victory. So we'll see here what Luciano does. Troops healing, reinforcing. No weapon racks. Karl here soon be able to take up already. I mean, he's been able to get a decent advantage there with Luciano. So Luciano here is certainly not having the easiest of times versus Karl. Mortar, 50 caliber setting out. Rifle then moving down to the centre. Swift movements up worst hit the fuel point there. Very good. And there he goes. Going to grab back the MG34. So that didn't quite work out there for Luciano. 50 coming up, secure the passes in a much stronger position. And could also perhaps be used with them maybe sort of blocking the flak half track, supporting too much. But we'll have to see there. I'm guessing it, Luciano at some point in the near future is going to go for the airdrop combat group. Simply for A, he gets an elite infantry squad, but also an anti-tank gun. And he just has to pay a bit of munitions and manpower, which I think is a reasonable deal here for Luciano. He's also getting pressing more there, which is good, and of course here. So he's looking to get back some territory versus Karl. Fulton's MG34 forming up a nice little combined arms group, stopping the rifle from ground the western victory point, at least making it a lot more painful. Mortar good to go, M20 being fixed up. Not too far from him. He could go for a Greyhound to hunt down the flak half track, put some pressure on his opponent that way. Canister rounds could also be quite helpful there for Luciano, though again, airdrop combat group seems more likely. Elite infantry, anti-tank gun. He's sufficiently far behind the fuel that he probably should begin preparing for medium armor, and there you go. Airdrop combat group inbound for Luciano. So that's going to be an infusion of more hardened infantry to take on the goddamn Krauts. As long as they don't get caught on a tree or something. In this case, they land all very safely away from any trees. And briefly considering here to the double bazooka upgrade, but decides against it, wanting instead Browning light machine gun, which of course is also a powerful upgrade for the paratroopers. Also got the anti-tank in there, quick recruit, good. Paratroopers not moving, they should probably also get moving, and there you go. Double Browning light machine guns, there you go. 50 caliber there, tearing a few holes there in the edge of flak half track there. And here in the West Lieutenant with them trying to support, they're trying to push back Karl's western holdings, and there you go. Brandhandgranate preventing a direct push into the cover there, also forcing them out to the open, away from cover longer. Very good move there by Karl, that was a very well timed grenade. Now with more infantry arriving, Luciano's western push simply lacks sufficient force to be able to push through, or mass if you will. Light infantry gun there for Karl, liked his Infanterie Schutz. Hitting the center victory point. Karl is Luciano is beginning to look stronger here versus Karl. He's beginning to look much stronger. Those anti-tank I think should be a bit closer to the front line, though of course still within range of troops to support and cover it. But beginning here on the flak half track, and there you go, paratroopers under fire. Goddamn Krauts, stop shooting at us! 9! You're paid to shoot, not by the bullet like you idiots saw. And there you go, double anti-tank gun hits it, takes out the flak half track faster than Karl anticipated. And certainly there is one thing about of the M1 anti-tank gun compared to most other anti-tank guns, it has a notably higher rate of fire, it shoots 50% faster. Which of course can allow you to quickly take down light vehicles and even medium armour if you're not prepared, in particular double of them can very quickly take apart a Panther 4 or a Stube. There you go, trying to pull up with a grenade, but not quite succeeding. In this case, the grenade was thrown around here, so it only damaged one of the gunners rather than as many as possible if you sort of thrown it over here. So didn't quite work out with that sufficient more grenades. Some more support there. It's not quite working out. He probably had more success if he had smoked the house, just brushed past the machine gun, maybe lobbing a grenade for the smoke. It might have caused Karl to sort of deem the threat larger than worth than just pull out, so that didn't quite work out. And now most of the mortar rounds hitting the other end of the house, which means less damage done as well. And now Karl is pulling for the Obersoldaten. Very good to see. There's been a slow increase in more players going for the Obersoldaten, though there's still many who just relying fully on full Grenadiers, even though the Obersoldaten increasingly are being, you know, more cost efficient, partly due to the full Grenadiers being nerfed, but also, you know, the Obersoldaten just being, you know, made slightly more worthy in terms of cost. So we got some more hardened SS Panzer Grenadier on the way here for Karl. It's a German army. A lot like machine gun fire. The folks got some additional BRs and rifle. We got no weapon max. We got another 50 caliber here to deal with infantry. There you go. The M20 is knocked out. He was able though to save the vehicle crew and then a spare bazooka. That's kind of nice though for Luciano. They need to get back to the car point. And we got a Panzerschreck in the Sturmpioneers. Karl helped us versus the Americans. It's not too worried about mines, though technically if he had reasons he could lay down light into tank mines, but he lost them, hasn't replaced them, and most American players, unless they're Sidolio, don't bother using them. So, I mean, it's not exactly a priority here for Karl to consider anything except just, you know, making it harder for Luciano to use vehicles and tanks. Rather than charging at the Sturmpioniere, we're a bit unsupported, though the MG34 is being set up there to assist. Pulled for us into the paratroopers, the 50 caliber and a mortar. Could catch the Obersoldaten in a pretty bad spot, and there you go. Double Browning 30 calibers there. There's the Obersoldaten with their LMG 34, and they are quick repulsed here down to half health in a matter of seconds. So now both sides have double heavy machine gun teams here, double 50 calibers versus double MG34s. And we got a smoke screen from the light infantry gun on the 50 caliber position right away here from Karl. A bit late, doesn't quite coincide with anything, but it does cause Luciano nonetheless to reposition his 50 caliber. So very good work there by Karl. Some good solid smoke usage. And there you go, another pineapple grenade. And again, no, it's not particularly well thrown. You have to remember, depending on where they are in the house, you have to throw the grenade where they are, because if they aren't in the position of the house, they're going to take a lot less damage, if any at all. Same applies to Molotovs or incendiary grenades. So how the units are positioned in the house is actually important to keep in mind when you're lobbing your grenades. So that's a little sort of fun tactical tip there. Luciano here is yet to take up. Karl can actually go for a Panther 4. Though he could also be going for a Panther, and right now the Panther does seem more likely. And certainly if you're sort of ahead, going for a Panther first isn't a bad choice at all. Certainly makes it harder for Luciano to get back onto the field when he does finally get some armor, since the Panthers can at least have some chance there, sort of holding it down. So we'll see what it ends up with. Schumina down here from Karl. It's a German army. And you got more smoke screens here. Very consistent with that, though it's mostly reactive. It's not, say, you know, preparatory here for any sort of attacks, but you know, just making overall use of smoke is pretty good. And there you go, quick 50 sprint to there. Quite impressive that it's a sprint with a 50 cal machine gun that weighs 50 kilos, by the way. That's pretty impressive run around like that. My God, Joe, how can you lift a 50 cal like that? I'm from Minnesota. Oh. And his troops in the center being suppressed. They got wiped on the Fulton. Is a bit of a loss there for Karl. A small victory though for Luciano, for America, the 19th Infantry. And there you go, Karl and the 2nd SS is pulling up their Panther, the Panzerkampfwagen 5. Got paired with this. We'll try and flank the Volksgunnists. Looks like it's going to try and put more pressure on the center. Maybe flank the MG34, supporting his attacks there. Though it does mean it's going to have less of a breakthrough there towards the western fuel point, lastly making it easier for Karl to go tanks, besides the Panther, which he's always going for. Luciano's yet to take up. Got big rifle push here. Just, oh goodness gracious, he's bouncing him up there. Some nice smoking on the house fire with it. No. There we go. Didn't quite turn out as bad as it could have, but it's still pretty bad, running almost all of them into. And there goes Fiat Panther Corps joining in as well. A rather botched assault there by Luciano. Took a lot of casualties without really doing anything serious to Karl, so that could have gone, I think, a bit better. Also, you know, was quite good there. Karl to pretty much just neutralise the paratroopers inside the house, force them out in the open, either towards him, where he could then do more damage, or away from him, where he would then doing no damage to Karl. Got the Panther out here for Karl in the 2nd SS. Most Panzer divisions would have 1 battalion in this Panzer regiment equipped with Panthers. Though as the war went on, that became a lot harder to actually do, and so to be mixed up with Panzer IVs or anything else. As a rule of thumb, they were supposed to, on paper, at least have a battalion full of Panthers. Another fun fact, though, is in most cases, by the time they actually came to the fighting, they usually only have like half the battalion ready at any time to fight, because the Panthers basically had such a high rate of breaking down that a lot of them were just, out for repairs a lot of the time. The Panther was notoriously mechanically unreliable. Even as sort of, made improved version, including the Panther model, it was still very unreliable. Nice timing there with the incendiary pistol rounds by here by Karl. That's actually a bit of a skill. A lot of players aren't actually very good at timing the incendiary pistol rounds, so just further damage assaults and break them up. But Karl clearly has mastered the skill. We got cluster bombs being unleashed on the MG-34. There we go. Doesn't do too much damage. I suspect in this case what Luciano's going to be a bit slow to retreat and then try to retreat through it. Instead, Karl just sat and waited, in which case that paid off. Except for Jürgen and Otto, who obviously died very tragically. You can see though, Luciano's actually now controlling the map much better here versus Karl. He's actually got most of it. He's, not just throwing his men ceaselessly at Karl. He's actually considering going for some armor now. A Jackson, I think, or some Shermans here would be initially, I think, a good choice. Will help deal here with the Panther. So we'll see what he ends up with. But he's got the fuel for it. I mean, one thing he just has to be careful, he doesn't begin throwing away manpower and bleeds himself out. Which is increasingly an option as Karl goes for more Obersoldaten, just more hardened infantry, and that way, put more pressure on Luciano and bleed out the rifle. Particularly because Luciano is interesting enough not upgrading the rifle with the BARs, but actually not fighting as fully efficiently as they could here versus Karl. So that's actually pretty big for Karl. That is pretty big. Got the MU-34 setting up. We got riflemen pulling down here, and no incendiary armor pistol rounds this time around. And we got another cluster bombs sort of throw down there. I'm not entirely sure about that one usage there. I mean, it obviously gets the MU-34 out of the spot, but it does mean he's not going to be able to upgrade his rifle, which again means the Obersoldaten longer term are going to prove to be pretty mean-spirited. Unless Karl gets them killed. Smoke screen on the MG-34 there. Luciano, finally begins to lay down some smoke of his own. Obersoldaten there almost got the MG-34 ready, and the South paratroopers sneaking about their veterans too. They're getting caught up next to Karl. There you go, he's smoking their 50 calibers, and both are smoking each other's machine guns. Excellent. It's not very often you actually get to see both players using smoke against each other. It is not very often, but it's great when you actually do see it. That's great. But the way Luciano's handling his infantry, he is setting himself up for a potential meat-grinder situation. It means it's going to be very difficult to get out any armor. And when he's also not upgrading his rifle, it means the fight's just going to sort of be slowly favouring Karl, because he's got his men upgraded. He's also finding a lot more tactically advantageous engagements, plus he's got a tank, so Luciano definitely needs to save up resources and consider his attacks a bit more carefully, rather than just, throw men at Karl. Because that is his strategy at the moment there. This is going to be costly. It's going to be quite a butcher's bill there for Luciano. Wait, the mines weren't set off for the cluster bombs? Or did he lay down some new there? It's hard to say. Oh, we got the Obersoldaten pushing up here, but close to 52. We got the other squad moving in as well. Getting the rifle, there we go, veterans 2 on 1 score, which is the only sort of real serious offensive boost, by the way. And of course, the MG-34s, it's pretty good. Obersoldat itself was just ranked within the army, but sort of the concept of just more elite infantry squads was actually something the German army operated with, at least in the later stages of the war, quite a bit. For example, infantry divisions that were supported with Stooks, at least given Stooks were actually expected to put together a platoon of their best men to support the Stooks, but also just sort of more, more or less on official basis. It was quite common for the infantry divisions, even I imagine also Panther divisions to form up Sturm units, or stormtrooper companies, if you will, out of some of the division's best men. So, I mean, in that regard, the Obersoldaten, while a bit awkwardly named, reflects something the Germans, did quite a lot here by 1944-45. Fun fact. Luciano, he just seems to be throwing his mat at the enemy again. He's actually got quite a fuel hump, but because of the consistent manpower bleed here, because he's just throwing himself at Karl here without much in smoke to cover half the time, it's rather working out for Karl against preventing Luciano from getting out, more tanks, because he's just constantly sending out troops that's in the back, reinforcing, and back and forth, while he's just constantly getting more fuel, but can't use it. So I do think Luciano needs to reconsider his strategy here a bit. Meanwhile, here we got Karl attacking head on with the Obersoldaten. An infantry blitz with which Luciano's forces find themselves a bit struggling due to lack of BARs. In this case, the 5th Corps being caught out in open cover, which means the MG Obersoldaten, light machine guns, they could just tear through them. There you go, got the anti-tank as well. I mean, double Obersoldaten, as you can see, is actually really potent. I'm actually surprised some Obersoldaten players aren't actually considering double Obersoldaten, like they're really good. Consider support with a bit of smoke to neutralise any threats, at least temporarily, that can actually stop them. Cluster bombs in this case did stop it, but it's not stopping Luciano's catastrophic manpower bleed, and it's not helping with getting tanks. So this is rather the advantage of Karl can soon go for another Panther 4. He would also go for a Panther, to be honest, except he's got too much population. Also, I'm not sure it's got the 5th Corps here rather than here, so he can actually cover the victory point, whereas here he can't. Hey Joe, yeah, I think there's something going on by that flag over there, like, it looks German. Are you sure? It looks like the Swedish flag to me. Are you sure? Yeah, I've totally been to Sweden. Are you sure? Yeah. I met a guy named Bob over there. They're all named Bob in Sweden. Panther there was a lieutenant rifleman. Paratroops there supporting as well. I mean, they're pretty much like, besides lieutenants, only sort of infantry unit with a bit more firepower than just the M1 Garands. And there you go, got the double Oberkommando there pushing ahead here. Artillery fire supporting them, and Luciano just without any sort of serious firepower besides the paratroopers will struggle a bit. He should probably consider suppressing fire here. Except he doesn't. Granted, I mean, theoretically, Karl could do it once he hits Victory 4, though most Obersoldaten players don't use it, or Obersoldaten uses. It's not a half bad ability. Though, of course, as more people begin using Obersoldaten, they'll probably more begin to continue using some of that suppressing fire. Up north, we've got a nice flank here from Karl, outmaneuvering Luciano's support weapons. Nasty work. And there you go, Panther one way for Karl. And the 2nd SS, anti-tank opening up in the Panther. Doesn't penetrate, we've got smoke shooting on the Kettenwerfer. I guess the MG-34 bit, but it's not quite covering well versus it. Unupgrade rifling center. I mean, he does have the weapon racks, but he's spending all his munitions here on cluster bombs rather than BARs. And that's not exactly helping in these one-on-one engagements versus Fult's going to use with, a couple of assault rifles and a few Pilsners. So there you go, looks like Luciano's finally setting up here for some armor, some tank destroyers most likely. But he's been rather late about it. I mean, technically he could have something much sooner, but because of the way Luciano's just been throwing himself time and time again at Karl, I mean, he's just been making not very particularly tactically prudent assaults. He's just beating himself up and preventing himself from getting anything up. But there you go. Jackson tank destroyer running here close to the 30-minute mark. Compared to the Karl and his Panther around the 17, 18, 19-minute mark. That's a 10-minute delay at the very least here, and that's not good. Double Obersoldaten here in light negative cover. That's the paratroopers in heavy cover. The paratroopers low in health. No suppressor fire. We got Betchify in one of the scores. He's probably going to have to retreat here. He does pop a quick pineapple grenade, but Karl dodges it easily. Got the Panther 4 supporting some Steel Pioneers, machine guns in the west. In the center, got Obersoldaten pushing up there. Riflemen getting obliterated here by the sheer volume of fire here that Karl can lay down with all his machine guns. Jackson is almost done. N36. And there you go, Lieutenant caught out in the open by the Obersoldaten. It's not pretty. It is not pretty. In fact, these Obersoldaten are very close to 4 million. They can access the suppressor fire. And there you go, 50 caliber stopping them. I'm not entirely sure again why he's keeping it there and not there. I mean, I'm guessing he's worried about artillery, but I'm guessing he's worried about it, obviously. But at the same time, right there, I mean, it's just not doing a lot for him either. But there you go. Jackson tank destroyer out with its 90mm gun. Of course, it did have a particular weakness in being open top, which of course made it lighter, gave the crew in sight, you know, better view and line of sight, but rather meant they had to be, you know, careful about artillery and infantry. Since if any of those got too close to the Jackson, it would be in a lot of trouble very fast. A lot of smoke screens from both players again, covering up as they try to grab each other's victory points. I mean, nice work there. Nice work. Luciano, though, still not upgrading his rifle with BARs, despite again having weapon racks upgraded. Not even an additional bazooka there on the vehicle crew. Obersoldaten pulling ahead rather than push back. We got mounts going down on the flanks. Very good. Hitting the points here. Double Obersoldaten sweeping in here for Karl for Germany. A bit of Sturmfire there, which is what it's known when you fire the machine gun while standing. They even had instructions for how to do it if you're actually a bit shorter than the average German soldier. They can't quite remember the trick. So a little fun fact there. Also, Karl might want not position his machine gun right next to mines, just small suggestion. Of course, once you're busy doing all that, you might miss it a bit. I've certainly done it quite a few times myself. And alright, there we go. Half an hour into the game, Luciano finally updates some of his rifle with additional BARs. Very good. Another smoke, they got the petrol ring, but there you go. Obersoldaten flanking in such a manner that the smoke won't matter. And the Panther doesn't seem particularly inclined to give a damn about it either. We got 19 and 20 kills in the double Obersoldaten, and that is about 40 kills. And 2 of them. I definitely say at this stage they've run themselves in reasonably well. Jackson, the damaged engine, could risk being pursued by the Panther on the Panther. Ran into a mine, no infantry support, no infantry screen. Bit of a tactical mistake there by Luciano, and it is one Karl I think he's going to be more than happy to punish Luciano for, as his Panther and his Panther rush in. They got the anti-tank and shooting. Didn't quite have the armor piercing rounds up, so first shot bounced off the Panther. Shot pension the Panther 4, but oh dear, that Panther gets the Jackson. He saves the crew, I guess. Penetrating hit there. Panther slightly dinged up there, but nothing too critical. Pulling back here. Panther 4's going to need some repairs. Hitting the cut-off point here. Back here, reinforcement healing going on for Luciano. Again, the overall manpower bleeds make it difficult for him to get any up more numbers of tanks, tank destroyers. Had been more cautious. We maybe had second Jackson up by now, and that way, in that case, the Panther 4 Panther would be having a much harder time. But due to the way that Luciano's been conducting a lot of assaults, and also just the fact that he doesn't have a lot that's been upgraded, as Karl has a lot of it, in particular upgraded Obersoldaten, it's rather making things a lot more difficult for Luciano than it necessarily needs to be. And there you go, Veteran 4 on the NU-34 crew here. Good work. Gute Arbeit, Leute. I'm sure they'll be getting a Iron Cross second class. Models have paid off nicely for Luciano, and he could have maybe at some point considered a second one as well. Would have been a reasonably cheap investment, and able to lay down some serious pressure on Karl's infantry. And there you go, Pedge being pushed back here by the Obersoldaten. Panther being fixed up. Now, he did lose his Sturm Pioneers with Panther and replaced in this case with Manpower kits, since, well, he's got enough armor now to actually warrant it. Karl theoretically has to resource the King Tiger soon. Of course, would have to go for the mechanized regiment first, so he's better off just going for another Panther 4, trying to go for a Panther, I guess, or just going for more Obersoldaten. I mean, 3 Obersoldaten squads would be Quite potent. Quite potent. Luciano here's got enough resources to go for another Jackson soon. Another M36. And there we go. Second Action Jackson versus Karl in the second SS. Fortunately charging in, we got a grenade thrown here, but not caught well timed there by Luciano. Easily dodged here by Karl. Smoke screen's down. And there you go, veteran C4 Obersoldaten out for Karl. Still no doctrine for him though. Again, it begs the question why he keeps having doctrines if he's never going to use them half the time. And in this case, with all the Obersoldaten, he could at least benefited from special operations. Quick grenades going off here, pushing back Luciano's troops. Beagle Cruise almost being wiped out and annihilated. Luciano sadly hasn't had any more BARs than the rifleman. And there you go, Jackson ready. But he lost the 50 caliber here to the Obersoldaten. And he could very well lose the anti-tanker. But the double Obersoldaten just, you know, are surprisingly effective. I mean, again, it's just not something you'd see happening in most cases because most players are just content using a lot of false conditions. But Karl here, I think, is more than readily just providing a very solid argument for why Obersoldaten are actually pretty good. I mean, because Luciano Part just has upgraded his troops, have been able to get tanks. I mean, they're just devastating him. Cluster bombs, they're doing a bit of damage to the Panther there, but overall, not enough to really sort of, you know, seriously harm it. Victory points wise, also looking a bit rough there for Luciano here versus Karl. Looking a bit rough. Hitting the Eastern victory point. Folks is charging into the Browning light machine guns. Quick Brandhand Granate. 25, 27 kills. Damn, they're good. Jackson needs shoots, bounces off the Panther 4's armor. That's a bit unfortunate there for Luciano. But again, he's got quite a fuel hump, and again, just due to all this manpower, but he's been suffering excessively versus Karl. In this regard, the Obersoldaten sort of to the later stage of the game have, I think, you know, done a lot to help with that part of the equation. And there you go, they're just rolling through Luciano's increasingly decrepit defences. His lines vanishing like dew before the German sun. There you go, veteran formed the second squad. He's going for a third Obersoldaten squad. A third one. My God. 28, 27. That's about 55 kills. Look at this, Otto. We're heroes. Yeah, but if the Allies ever catch us, we're war criminals. Sounds cool as well. Grenades here. Hoping the opponent would rush into the Obersoldaten. Luciano, though, was not quite as keen on that, but there you go. Victory points run out, and GG, game over here. A loss for America. The 19th Infantry is forced to fall back in the face of Karl's brutal infantry assaults and its Obersoldaten. Starting to prove themselves, well, worth the price tag in this case, I think. So, some good play there by Karl. Overall, I think Luciano, while he made some good moves, the problem was in part just he kept on making a lot of not very favourable engagements with Karl. Plus, Karl's initial, I think, unorthodox capping order here and just attack order on Langraskaya also threw off Luciano to a degree, but just the way so Luciano at times just, you know, keep throwing himself at Karl, not necessarily at the plan, suffering huge manpower loss, ensuring he couldn't actually use all the fuel he had, which I think would have done a lot more for more effective engagement if he had some Shermans to help blast infantry, and then some Jackson support that, which could also soak up the Shermans could then soak up the damage for the Jackson as well, but rather just kept throwing infantry at Karl, particularly without any upgrades for the rifle, and that was also, I think, really advantageous for Karl here, in particular once he got the Obersoldaten out, when again, that's part of the reason it's just casted, because I mean, you just don't see a lot of Obersoldaten, which is really surprising because we can see here I mean, a pair of Obersoldaten squads is an absolute nightmare for an American player to deal with. I imagine also for the Brits and for the Soviets. So, I mean, I'd certainly say this is a case for maybe, maybe if you're playing as the Oberkommando, consider some Obersoldaten, because they're pretty, damn good. Karl obviously could also have gone for Dutch, but at the same time, I'm guessing he just didn't feel particularly threatened for Luciano for long enough to, warrant it. But again, had Luciano, I think, gone for some more varied tactics, maybe another mortar as well there, I think he would have done better. But again, the overall issue was just a massive manpower bleed as the fight went on, which really just benefited Karl. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed this match. Hope you learned something from it. If you did, subscribe, tell your friends, share it with everyone. If not, send in replay or some feedback in the comment section. This is Unrelenting. Cheers. Thank you for watching. Hope to see you all tomorrow for another exciting episode. Bye.